So thank you so much, Carl, for joining us. I've been following Carl for a very long time. He has the most fabulous words of wisdom, some honest truths, and it really makes you think. So the reason that I wanted to bring this in is because of my relationship with my students when they're doing their business plans and they're talking about charging the same as somebody else down the road. And the question I ask is, well, how much profit are you earning from this? Are you actually earning a living, or have you just got a very expensive hobby? And sometimes it's a little bit shocking that people realize that actually they've got an expensive hobby and they're not going to be able to leave their jobs. So, and I know that that's what a lot of people would like to do. So thank you very much, Carl. I'm going to pass you over. As always, interactive, put some questions in the post. I think Carl will probably give you some opportunities to ask questions. And if you are joining later on, and you're watching this back, then please do put comments in the posts as well, because Carl or myself will answer them. So over to you, Carl. Thank
Oh,
you very
thank you,
much.
guys. Hey, thanks, Louise. Lovely to see you guys. I've got a mini presentation by you, so I'll do some introductions about myself as well. Some of you will know who I am. Louise definitely knows who I am. So I'm going to pull up a mini presentation. What I'd like to do is whiz through that with you, because I think that's going to answer lots of your queries and questions. Then we can do the custom stuff and say, my business is slightly different, or my circumstances, or my fears, or my concerns are slightly different, and then we can have, as long as you want, talking about some of these issues. Okay, so let me grab this, and then we'll get a screen share going. Which one is it? Gotta find my own screen share here. Okay then, guys. Louise, can you see that as a presentation? You can. Good. Thumbs up. I have done presentations in the past where I thought I might have been speaking about the presentation and I wasn't. Right then, guys. So a bit of lunchtime learning. I'm very grateful for the invite to come along, because everything in business that we can grow and develop helps us. And you'll see I'll also talk about not just helping ourselves, but helping our families as well. The pricing structure is so fundamental to every single business, and it is then therefore very surprising that so many of us get it wrong. So I'm going to tell you first of all a little bit about me, in case you don't know who I am, and I'm not going to go on for a very long time. You can jump on my website if you really want to dive into it, but things that maybe you're interested in. So I'm a salon business coach. My company is called Salon Help. We've been operating for between 15 and 20 years, depending on what format we were working in. And my main thing, even though I do loads and loads of things around business, is to grow people's sales. We can't get that right without the correct pricing. I have had multiple salons. I had 4 salons altogether. I grew them from zero. In fact, the first building was a pet shop. Some of the other buildings were clothing shops and so on. So even though most of you don't have salons per se, I just want to kind of share that bit with you, just to say, look, I've been through this emotion, I've been through this barrier, and I've been through these mistakes. Okay, I'm not one of these coaches that came out of university and said, look, let's just follow this textbook and everything will be okay. Everything that I coach is a combination of education, learning, experience, and current understanding as well, because things do change. I'm also I call myself the original pricing app developer. We brought this out in 2018, and I've done other things, written books, I do public speaking and all those lovely things as well. But hopefully, you know, in that I'm a long-term established business coach, that I've had multiple salons, so I've got that t-shirt, and that I really, really understand pricing in quite some detail. So I'm happy to help you with wherever we need to. Now, on the pricing side of things, we could spend many hours on this, but we've got less than an hour. And the most important part of this session is your personal questions, okay? But I want you to start off by thinking about pricing as your brand. It's part of your marketing. This is the first thing that goes wrong. Forget about the maths for a moment. Okay, forget about the profitability, which is next. When we get pricing wrong, we can often, and we usually do, position our business in the wrong place. All right. So you've got to get your pricing right so that people see you in the right way. Okay, and you could think about that with brands, can't you? You could think about that with things like, Ferrari cars. They are positioned in a certain way based on price. The actual car itself, functionally, is probably no better than your, I don't know, Ford Fiesta, Mercedes, or whatever. So the pricing strategy that you, or the pricing level that you start with, forget about the profitability for a moment, is really essential if you want to position yourself somewhere. You can't, for example, have a premium business, okay, at a substandard price. You won't be able to afford to do it. You'll run out of money, time, energy, and love in the end, but you've got to get that price right that reflects your business. Profitability, of course, guys. And this is where most businesses go wrong. And I'm going to share with you in a moment how many businesses go wrong with this. And I really want to throw this in here because if I was rebranding myself at the moment, I would probably call myself a sales growth and stress reduction coach. Right? So it's too long for me at the moment, but if I could think of shortening that up, I probably would, because bringing down business stress is the most important thing that we can do, because it's going to allow you to function within your business and grow and develop, enjoy what you're doing. And I tell you something, it's definitely going to make your home life a whole lot better as well. We can't bring that stress down if your pricing is wrong. It's going to push your stress up. Okay. So I got to drink tea as we go, guys. You have to excuse me. Okay. This number here, 80% of salon businesses in the UK and USA. So I've got clients all over the world, and this figure is true of every country that I work with a client in, whether we're talking about New Zealand, whether we're talking about Spain. But the two key areas, the UK and the USA, 80%. Can you imagine that? 8 out of 10 businesses, okay, I'm talking salon style businesses now, operate at break even or at a loss. 80%, 8 out of 10. And it's an incredible amount that you wouldn't think the industry would be able to sustain that. And it doesn't. And that's why 8 out of 10 businesses also close within 10 years and 3 out of 5 within 5 years. But how can you do that? That's what you're saying, Carl. That can't be right, Carl. How can we possibly do that? I see 10 businesses, you're telling me, and 8 of them are running at a loss, or they're running at, break even. So they're just going to go along forever. And the way we do it, the way you do it, okay, particularly if you're growing the business, the way you do it is you subsidize the business. Right? Now, I wish I could see all of your faces at this stage. Is that a hand up for me? Louise, do you want to come in?
It is. I just wanted to ask, would you say that that was also true for solopreneurs that are working mobile or from home? Or do you think the fact that if you're working from home, or are you still subsidizing the business a great deal?
Well, I'll tell you what the subsidy is. You might be able to tell me then, right? But I'm including mobile hairdressers, mobile therapists, technicians. Um, and as you can see, there's a line here that says illegal practices. And I don't want to be kind of judgmental about people, but people are very flexible, particularly on the mobile side, okay, about how they declare the earnings, okay, and how that is often subsidized with also things like, I don't know, benefits and universal credit and all those kinds of things as well. So you're all going to have your little picture here, and there's going to be a little bit of this in all of us, okay, whether we've subsidized the business or, do you know what? You and I, Louise, I bet you when I tell you the big subsidy, we've all done it, and maybe we're doing it now, okay? But this does go for all solopreneurs as well as salon business owners. So the big subsidy here is your time and your lack of wage. So what you might be doing, and you just have to be honest with yourself. Let's say you're working from home, you're on your own, or you're freelance, and you're not. Let's do freelance. There's a good one, okay? Let's say you're doing freelance and you're setting a price, and you're thinking, great, I'm doing £300 a week, £500. I don't know what you guys are doing, and you're not charging for your travel time. You're sat in the traffic, okay, you're going around roundabouts, all right, and the hour between clients you think is free. So you're out 8 hours a day, When you're at the client's premises, or maybe you're at a nominated premises, those 4 hours you're charging correctly. But what about the time in between? But let's say you're working from your own, happy home salon. This is where the big subsidy really happens. Either you are not paying yourself the right amount for the work you do. And I always think of it like this. If someone like you, all right, who's working at high level, I will almost guarantee that if you're connected with Louise, you are working high level services. I mean, you're at a high standard, right? Nobody on here is awful or rubbish, okay? If you was operating in a good salon or a good clinic, how much would you be getting paid? And there's your minimum starting point. If I just pack this in now and I went to work for someone else, what's the minimum I would get paid? 12, 15, 18, 20, 25 pounds an hour? Now, if you are not getting that, you are subsidizing the business. If you are a £20 therapist and you are finding that you're paying yourself £10, you're subsidizing two areas. You're subsidizing the business by £10. And the bit that I might want to talk to you about a bit later on is you're subsidizing your clients. You're subsidizing your clients' holidays. You're subsidizing their lifestyles because you're taking it off yourself and you're saying, I'm not going to have the correct price, Carl, for whatever emotion you've got, and we have got to touch on these, but I am going to make sure that my prices are so low that my clients can afford to live, that they can do everything that they want to do, and I'm not going to pay myself the full whack. Maybe you've told yourselves, like, I'll take what's left at the end of the week after I've paid all the bills. Yeah. After I paid my, I don't know, maybe you have got a bit of rent, but you definitely got overheads. You got electric, okay, water, gas, insurance, equipment. Maybe you're saying to yourself, after I've paid all that, I'll pay myself what's left. Now, if I'm wrong, I'm really, really, really happy to be wrong. If you're all on here, all on rerun saying, Carl, you're wrong. I'm getting my £1,000 a week like I would as a therapist person. Well, hey, listen, I would like to be wrong about every single person in the industry, but I guarantee I'm not. Salon business owners, okay, salonpreneurs or solopreneurs are subsidizing the business by not paying yourself enough. Or if you're paying yourself enough, maybe you're saying, Carl, I pay myself a load. The next subsidy is that you're doing loads more hours than everyone else. So you might be saying, yeah, I'm getting my £800 a week. That's what I would get if I was operating for someone else. And you're happy with it. And that's the trouble. Sometimes we're just happy with it. But you are then going to tell me, but actually, Carl, I work 50 hours, 60 hours, 70 hours for that. So there's a good chance that if your pricing structure is wrong, you are subsidizing it by giving the business either your wages, which we're then passing on to the client. So we're subsidizing all your clients, or we are subsidizing it with hours. So we're doing maybe double the hours or 50% more hours than we would normally do. Okay, so you're giving the business or your clients your time or your money. And that's how 80% of all businesses, all right, all businesses within our industry and some outside the industry, hospitality, catering, all that sort of stuff, they do this as well. They work their socks off, underpay themselves, and pass that saving on to the client to subsidize their lives. The illegal practices, I'm not going to get into that with you guys, but it is important to mention that when we get ourselves in this situation, we do start to identify people who are operating illegally. We all know what that is. How do we have so many businesses that only ever get to £89,000 on VAT? How do we have so many cash only businesses? You know who they are. And then there are some practices which are not illegal. And I mentioned them earlier, such as getting other subsidies, maybe government subsidies, and a big, big subsidy that you should all be aware of and be honest with yourself, partner subsidies. Your wife, your husband, your partner um, maybe is really, really happy for you to have this lifestyle business. Okay, because you got job flexibility, it works around the family, all that sort of stuff. I get it. But I think you should be able to get that plus the financial reward. But sometimes those partners are subsidizing the rent by paying the mortgage, or they're subsidizing your bills, or maybe they're just subsidizing your life by taking on all the tasks and chores that you would otherwise be available for. Really, really important that you're just honest with yourself. Carl, I'm one of those 8 out of 10.
Can I just interject there, actually, Carl,
Yep.
because that's triggered a few conversations that I've had over the last little while where that scenario was absolutely fine for a particular time, and for whatever reason, the therapist has decided that they actually don't want that subsidy anymore from partners, or they can't have that subsidy anymore, and that they are now looking to become more autonomous. They're looking to re-establish their business in a different location, and they've got no idea how to go about it because they've been used to charging next to nothing, and all of those wonderful things that you've said. So
Yeah.
just triggered that it might not be the case for you now, and you might be listening to this going, well, that doesn't apply to me, but it might do. So you can come back and watch this again when it, if it ever, and hopefully it doesn't get to that point. But yeah, it's cool. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. No problem. Good. Good. Um, and then that kind of goes hand in hand with this, if you like. What you see isn't what is really happening when you look at other businesses. And you might be looking at each other on here. So you're on Louise's group and someone's posting all this crazy great stuff on Instagram and this success and that success. Um, and I'm not saying it isn't true. I hope it is true. But what you see isn't necessarily what is happening. And I'll give you an example. Now, it is a salon example, but um, uh, well, it wasn't that recently. A year or two ago, someone phoned me and says, "Can you come and help my wife's business because she's got VAT problems?" And the VAT problem was this: she had the most amazing looking salon. Right? And I'm not talking about salons really here. I'm talking about what you see on social media, and you think that you can maintain your business at a substandard price point or profitability because someone else must be doing it. However, in the reality was in this case, her husband owned a roofing company. She owned a beautiful, beautiful salon that she operated every day, and his business paid her VAT bill. So to the rest of the world, okay, except for me and him, all right, she was running a subsidized and almost fraudulent style business because she was really defrauding herself in a way. She was kidding herself. So what I'm talking about here is envy. Don't think that you have to stick with the model you got because it looks like it's working for everyone else. That's the story here. It isn't working for everyone else. It isn't working for most people, all right? So just social media is wonderful. Okay, I absolutely love it. We wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for it. But it isn't always as you see it. Now let's talk about you. Let's talk about how you set your prices here, because we've got to decide when we start a business, how do we set the price? Now, the four typical ones, the four key areas about when you set your price, right? And again, you're going to have to put your hand up and put it in the notes here. And I'm sure Louise will have an opinion on this as well. How did you set your price? When you started, go back whenever it was, 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 10 years ago, because I can tell you now, if it was wrong 3 months ago, 6 months, 10 years ago, there's a chance, unless you've applied some sort of maths to this, that it's still incorrect in some way. Lots of people, particularly when they're starting out, have a bit of a guess because they want to know how it feels. They have to feel comfortable. And this is the first thing. I have to feel comfortable with my price. And that could be a real big problem if you're insecure. Yeah, you may be saying things to yourself like, "Oh, I'm just starting out." One of the big things I hear as a problem is, "I'm going to have my prices low at the beginning and build it up." Trouble is with that, you have clients at a low price. How do you get them onto a high price? Yeah, if you're getting them on low price because they can't afford it because you're starting out, will they necessarily come with you when you're at full price in 2 years' time? So sometimes it's just an emotion. Sometimes we take them from our last point of business. So maybe you was working in a salon, all right? Maybe you was working in a college or something like that, and you think, right, well, I'll just move from here to here, and I'm bringing a few customers with me. They're used to paying £50 for this service, 100, £200 for this service. So I'll take that with me. Maybe I'll downgrade it a little bit because they're not getting quite as much. Yeah. They're not getting the same surroundings or they've got to travel a bit further. But generally speaking, I move that across. The reality is that previous business, if they did it correctly, set their prices based on things. Yeah. They set them based on their overheads. And we are going to look at that in a moment. The biggest one, and I would say this is going to be about 9 out of 10, and I'm going to come up and admit that when I opened my first salon, I did this. I looked at all the competition and I thought, I'm going to balance things out. If they can all do this, then they must have it right. I didn't know back then, 20, 25 years ago, that they were all closing and failing and their husbands and partners and wives were throwing money in or they were working 80 hours for 20 hours. I didn't know all that. So I took the competition. Now, I was very lucky because I was a little bit arrogant, if you like, and thought, well, they're all charging this, but my business is much better. And I flipped it to the higher side of things, and it just turned out to be okay. But that was pure luck. I could have, instead of growing my 4 businesses, I could have easily been closed within 6 months. But if you are looking at your competition, hopefully I've given you enough warning already. If it's just someone else on social media, if it's someone across the road, if it's someone doing mobile, if it's a salon, the chances are they are subsidizing that business in some way. If you follow them, the chances are you're following them into some level of failure. Or maybe you did calculate them, and I added on this word, I think, because I've got to be honest with you, mathematically calculating is the right way to go, but not all of us are amazing at maths, are we? You know what I mean? The last time some of us did maths was probably when we did our GCSEs or O levels. And if you are a mathematician, congratulations. Hopefully you've got everything right. But most people are not that mathematically endowed when it comes to business, okay? Even your accountants are going to struggle with all of the things that you need to incorporate into a pricing calculation. And so it has to be made clear. There's only one way to set a price. And I never talk about putting prices up, to be honest with you. You'll never hear me saying on any forum or group, put your prices up, right? I always talk about you having the correct price because until I know if your price is correct or not, I can't make that judgment. It could be that you've worked them out correctly. It could be that you was lucky like me and you just got it right. All right. Maybe you just got super, super, super low overheads. Okay. Maybe you have got it right, but there's only one way to know, and that is to mathematically calculate them because there's only one way to set a price, and it's with maths and not emotion. Okay, Louise?
I just wanted to
I,
share.
I, I love it when you put your hand up because it gives me a chance to have a drink.
Just wanted to share a little story which might help people feel excited about maybe doing the maths. I had a one-to-one with one of my therapists a while ago, and part of what she was saying was, I'm so busy, I'm working every evening that's going on. And I said, well, let's go back to the maths. Have you, when was the last time you calculated this? And to cut a very long story short, we went back to the beginning and we calculated everything, and we realized that actually she was doing more work than she actually needed to achieve what she wanted. And when I do business plans with people, we always start with the why. What is it that you actually want to get out of this? And she said, oh, I could drop a couple of evenings and I'd still actually make as much money as I want. So yeah, there are some really, really valuable things to actually get the hard work in the maths done. There we go.
Oh,
That was it.
well, totally. There's so many people out there, and probably so many people in this group that could work less hours and earn more money and more profitability and have more control and reduce that stress. You know, I would say majority of people. In fact, I have a mini course that says work less, earn more. And that sounds like, oh yeah, Carl, that's a bit of a gimmick, but it isn't. If you work less, and I'm talking about delivering services at the wrong price, at the wrong timings, there's another one, okay, is that we often take too long to deliver a service, which then affects the price. And I'll talk about that when we get into the app. I just want to push you guys away from the emotion of what you're doing. Now, the emotion of what you do, the creativity, if you like, the connection with your client is what made you an amazing therapist. I got to respect that and appreciate that. It's also the thing that's making you an awful business owner. Okay. When we start connecting with the client on an emotional level and our pricing or our business side is then modeled on their lifestyle circumstances, it starts making us less effective business owners. So your prices have to be an emotional one because once you have the correct price and it's a mathematical equation, you can then you have the power then to make decisions. So it's really, really important that we get this mathematically right. Now, I call this pricing fear, right? Lots of you will have this, and if you haven't, please put, say in the comments, or please say when I don't have that problem, Carl. I'll be super, super proud of you. I think we've all had this at some stage. I mean, my prices, even as a coach, I adjust them all through the year. I keep checking them in line with what I want to achieve as a business coach. All right. What do I want to achieve as a business coach dictates what I want to charge. And of course, I have the same emotion. I think, well, what if that means I can't help more people? I get that as an emotional barrier because I like helping people. But realistically, I can't afford. But what's that saying? Champagne and lemonade prices, something like that. None of us can really afford to do that. So the first thing about your pricing is you got to know the facts, okay, about your prices. You got to know how big is this problem because it's like any problem. And Louise is saying about doing business plans. What do you want to achieve? When someone says to me, Carl, I got this really big problem on, I don't know, um, let's say retail is a good one. And I say, how big is the problem? Because if you don't know how big a problem is, you don't know how much action to take. So if you say to me, and we'll touch on retail because that's really important, not so much in terms of pricing,
on
but in
retail.
terms of profitability. Someone want to come in? Nope. Okay. So and we're talking about emotions now, right? So if your fear is really bad, okay, you got to know the facts about you, but you got to know why your price is built up of that. I talk about here, why do you choose to remain a price-based business? Now, this is probably the big thing that you need to consider. When you're a price-based business, you're always going to be in battle over price. And this is the thing I want to steer you all from. If the reason the client is coming to you because of price, you've got a major problem. You're always going to be what they call in a fight to the bottom. And you've got to be thinking about this because I don't think any of you, when you start thinking about this, are going to be thinking, I want to be the cheapest. Yeah, I want a reputation for being the cheapest in my area. I could undercut anyone. I don't think you're thinking like that. Not really. Do you want someone to phone you up and say, "Hey, listen, I really like to have this session with you, this service. Why did you choose me? Ah, because you were the cheapest." Yeah, who wants that emotion? I would hate that as a coach. Carl, I chose you because you were the cheapest. Do you mean I was the best? No, 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 you was the cheapest. So you have to start thinking about why would I want a price-based business where the main and key and maybe only reason is I'm coming to you based on price. This is still to do with correct price, by the way. I'm not telling you put your price up and up and up. I'm saying for your business, we have the correct price. I would also say the price should never be the reason people come to you. But if you have got that, if you have got a pricing issue, if after we've done the app, you go, oh my word, my prices are so incorrect, what I've got to do. What I'm saying is, first of all, understand what built that price up. Secondly, realize that you cannot remain in a price based business. What you can do is change your perception, your brand perception, change what people think about you, give them reasons, give them value, if you like, for choosing you that isn't based on your price. Maybe you're going to change your whole business model altogether. If you're one of those people in that 8 out of 10, maybe you're struggling with the subsidies from your partner. Maybe you've just, you call it burnout. Maybe you're a bit exhausted. Maybe you're losing a bit of love for your business. Yeah, you're losing the energy. Maybe you got to change the business model, like Louise said earlier. Maybe it is you do less evenings at higher prices. That is a business model change for you. Maybe you change your opening hours, maybe you change the services you provide, and that's a big one as well. Maybe once you've identified the correct pricing structure, you phase it in as opposed to, Carl, we've got to jump from 50 to 100. Maybe we do phase it in, but the reason I add the phase in here is because your pricing adjustments need to be frequent. Once a year on the 1st of April, because of it's the taxation year and the minimum wage is going up, or it's because the government have just done the budget, is not good enough. Things are changing all of the time. One of the things you all forget about is inflation. The value of money in your pocket is dropping by 2 or 3% every month. If your prices are only going up once a year, once every 2 years, even after they're correct, the value of what you have left is dropping and dropping and dropping. Okay. So you can phase things in, but stay on top of the pricing all of the time. And I've added in here, respect yourself and your family. You are an amazing therapist technician. Okay. You are an amazing business owner. You put in lots of energy into this. But what you get in return, that finance is an indication of how much respect you have for yourself, but also your family. Right? And for those of you that have got families, as in children as well, you'll know, and if you don't know, you're about to learn that the demands that they have on you will develop and change as well. And sometimes your business has to do the same. Okay, 1 minute, they'll want an Xbox. The next minute, they're going to university and need a new car. So have all of those things in mind when you are addressing yourself emotionally. When you're saying, I am subsidizing my client, I'm going to have less, so my client's going to have more. How does that sound to you? Does that sound right? Why should you have less for them and their families to have more? No, I'm going to get this correct so that my clients get, a good and proper, genuine service at an amazing price, at the correct price. But I'm also going to have the same. Yeah, I deserve all of that as a reward. I'm going to run through the app with you and then we'll do questions, okay? Because I realize I'm talking on a bit and I'm not going to go into any more detail on that. So how do you calculate these prices if you don't have them already? Okay. Could you do them on paper? Absolutely. Could you get a calculator out? Absolutely. If you've got an expert with you. But when you start building in all of the things that you're about to see, you'll see why you will want to use a calculator, okay, or a pricing app like this. And what you're going to learn when you're going through this pricing app as well is how do you run a better business? It's like a um, two prong approach, if you like, because it makes you think about things that you would never otherwise think about. So I'm just going to bring this up before we do Q&As. I'm just going to bring up a separate, if I can get rid of it, I'm just going to bring up a separate screen so you can have a quick look at what we do. Okay, good. Hopefully you can see an example of the pricing app. I'm already in there. I wanted to save a bit of time. When you're doing this calculation, right, when you're starting to look at your prices, these are the things you got to start looking at. You can't remember all these. Okay, this is a small boutique salon, but the only real difference between you and them is possibly your rental, depending on where you're based, and obviously your staffing, because most of you won't have staff. Doesn't matter. The benefit of this is, let's say you are operating as a unit at the moment and you wanted to go to a premises, you can put these figures in to see where the price has got to project to. But as a quick one, here are some of the things that you should be considering when looking at your pricing. All sorts of things I've put in here, okay? Maybe you're renting a premises, your water, um, uh, refuge, electricity, your telephones, transport, property insurance, liability insurance, any admin, any sundries, tea, coffee, tea bags, equipment replacement. When you're developing a price, your price isn't based on what happens today. This is a real important part of what we are looking at the moment. We've got to look at what do we need to collect now off the client to pay for things in the future. So you've got things in here, for example, like equipment replacement. Let's say you need to buy a new bed and you know that the longevity of this bed is 2 years old. Okay, it's 2 years, sorry, and it's getting a bit rickety, or the electrics break down on it if you've got an electric bed or whatever it is. If you don't build that into today's price, what happens in 2 years' time when you need that bed? Let's say the bed is £1,000 because you haven't collected any money off the client for it. If you haven't collected it and you need to buy a £2,000 bed or a £1,000 bed, where does that come from? That comes from what? Your overdraft, which we now have to build into the future price and collect on a debt? Or do you go into subsidy again? Do you put it on your credit card? Yeah. Do you ask your partner, can I borrow this? Do you go and get a bank loan? Do you use your overdraft? Right? You're subsidizing your business if you don't plan ahead. So for all of you, this will be slightly different. Lots of things that are on there you won't have. You may have other things. And don't lie to yourself. For example, when you're doing your prices right now, especially if you're a home-based salon or you're working out of a garden room or something like that, let's say you're using the household internet. That's a cost, guys. You can't pretend it's not happening. All right. You have to make sure that you are genuine with yourself. So first of all, we have to get your overheads and you have to write them all down. Now, don't take your overheads from last year's accounts, because last year's accounts are already about 18 months out of date. We have to take them from what we are spending right now, but even more so, what are we going to be spending in the future? And I did mention this, Louise. This is what we call future proofing. I can do also a mini session just on the future proofing part, because as an example, let's say you're sat there now, or you're working with Louise and you're saying, right, I want to grow my business from a £20,000 business to a £50,000 business. How are you going to do that without any marketing whatsoever? The real answer is you're probably not. I don't know whether you're going to be using social media ads, whether you're going to be doing leaflets, okay, whether you're going to be doing, um, I don't know, maybe you're going to be doing an update on your website. Yeah, a new website. That is money that we are forecasting that we are going to spend. Okay. So we have to future proof. We have to say we are going to be spending money on marketing in 2 months and 3 months and 4 months. Not what am I spending at the moment. So when you're doing your pricing and you say, oh, I don't spend anything on marketing, but I want to grow my business. Okay, well, then I'm going to need to spend £200 a month, £500 a month, £1,000 a month. And we can't spend it unless we get it off the client. So it's really important that we look at our general overheads, that we look at marketing, not only what are we spending now, but what are we going to spend in the future. And we have a lot of service fees. Now, we've got things like accountants. And if you haven't got an accountant and you are developing and growing, I would certainly recommend you do get one for the future. But there's other things. Coaches, obviously, your coaching fee should be really, really high. Didn't you think, Louise? Yeah. Okay. Really, really high numbers for coaching fees, guys. But the reality is, even if you're not using a coach right now, let's say you want to use one in 6 months' time. Well, where are you going to get the money from to pay for us? Yeah, let's collect the money now so you are planning ahead. Do you see how this is starting to make you think? You're only setting your prices, but it's starting to make you think about the future of your business. Electronic charges, and maybe some of you have got business loans from the past, or you're planning on getting business loans for growth or development in some way. Now, I know most of you haven't got payroll, but if you did move into that, you would obviously put those kinds of overheads in there as well.
One of the other thing, Carl, that
Yeah.
a lot of people say to me when we're doing business plans is, "Oh, the money has come from redundancy, or the money has come from savings, or the money has come from gifted from whatever." And the question I always ask is, "So, are you planning to make your business pay that money back?" And if the answer is yes, that would need to go in there as well, wouldn't it? Because, like you said before, it's all very well looking at somebody else's business, but if they've been given £20,000 to set up their business and it's a gift, that is very different from you, who's actually got to take it from the mortgage account or a savings, and that ought to go back to. Otherwise, you don't know whether your business has been successful at all.
Well, anything that goes into the business should be returned to the individual. So, I mean, if you're a director, it would be come in as a director's loan. And I know most of these are solo traders. So yeah, anything. If even if as you're going along, let's say you have a bad month, it happened to us all, guys. All right, you don't know. Maybe I had a problem with one of my businesses where they put yellow, or they wanted to put yellow lines up, or one of my salons had the water board outside for a month. Okay, it was no fun, I can tell you that. If you've got to go and borrow £10,000 off your mother-in-law, that has to go in here as a loan because that the business now has to generate £10,000 more. What I would do with that though, guys, is you wouldn't just put it in. You would say, how long am I going to pay this back over? So let's say you took your redundancy money, you had £20,000 redundancy money, and you're going to put this. You wouldn't necessarily have to say, I'll put £20,000 in and recuperate that this year. You might say, I'm going to put the £20,000 in as £5,000 each year and get that back and pay myself that back, not as a wage, by the way. Yeah. That has to come back to you in a much, much different way. That has to come back to you as a loan repayment. You can't, again, as Louisa said, we can't pretend, yeah, that this isn't happening. We can't pretend that £50,000 came from somewhere and now we can whittle it away. Because what that would mean is your business actually made a loss of £20,000 or it made a loss of £50,000 because you're not recuperating it. So absolutely anything you've put into the business, we spread it over a reasonable amount of years, like a bank loan, like your bounce back loans if you had them from the COVID era, anything like that has to be paid back. As I said, don't kid yourself. Don't pretend this stuff isn't happening. It really, really is happening. Otherwise, it's not a genuine business. And really important if you ever did go to become a salon-based business, by the way, because if you ever wanted to sell your business, any new buyer would want to identify that. They said, well, how did this all start then? You can't say, oh, I put in 500,000 and I made £50,000 profit last year. They'd be like, oh, this don't sound like a good deal to me. So it's just good business practice. Everything that goes into this business that's gone in originally. And for VAT, by the way, as well, if you were getting a bit bigger. Um, there is a really, really important area here in the setup on this. And I really want to point this out because I want you to think about this. In your parameters, in one particular area, I want to show you this target profit down here. When you guys get paid, right? Let's say now you're doing a week's work. Carl, I'm doing 40 hours. I'm getting £20 an hour. I get 800 quid. Well done, guys. What I want to tell you is this. That £800 is money for you as a therapist, as a technician. Well done. You just got paid £800 as a therapist. You've been paid absolutely zero as a salon business, salonpreneur, solopreneur, entrepreneur, okay, at all. Who is going to pay you for all of that hard work? And it has to go in here. And you have to say to yourself, do you know what? I work my socks off. I miss the kids' football. Okay, I don't go. I don't know. I don't go out with my husband or my wife enough. I sacrifice this. I work this hard. Okay, I'm run down. I want you to think of profit like this. Who's paying me for all my blood, sweat, tear, for all those stress? Who's paying me to spend all that time with Louise, all that time with Carl, all the late nights? Who's paying me to lie in bed at night worrying? Who's paying me for doing the stock and order? Who's paying me, okay, for doing all that planning? Who's paying me for doing the pricing app? And that's the box.
Laundry, I think, is our big one in our industry.
Laundry, anything at all. Okay, so you're a therapist, you get paid your wage. Everything else. Do the big thing for me though, Louise, is the stress and emotional investment. That's what I want to be paid for. Yeah. When I look back, or even as a coach, yeah, we both know what it's like. Even as a coach, we look back, we say, well, I can't, I charge £20 an hour to get that task done. Who's paying me to build this business, to go and drive to exhibitions, to spend time? All has to be paid for, guys. Now, this box is emotional, by the way. You'll like this one, guys. This one is a bit more emotional because I can never tell one of my clients what that number should be. I want you to decide. When I open up my accounts next April, like that, I open up the book like that, and it says I've been paid £1,000 a week, £800 a week for 12 months. I'm happy with my pay. But what about that number? What will you and your husband and your family be happy with when you open that and they go, you just spent a year stressed to the ceiling and back. and you got 200 quid in there. Or you open and you go, oh my God, there's 25 grand in there. Let's go and get a car. Let's go and get an extension. Let's renovate something. Let's do something different. Let's go on holiday. Let's reinvest in the business. Let's get new furniture. Let's get new marketing. Let's get a new website. That number is a bit more emotional. We can apply a lot of maths to it, but that number fits into your price. Okay. You say, I want to get paid this much. Now, when we look at, we'll go back to staff up here. All right. Even if there's only one of you, you have to pay yourself as staff. So you have to use this slot. You say, my name is Haley, and I'm the only one who works here, and I want to work 41 hours a week, and I want to get paid this much. That's my wage as a therapist. And then I'm going to pop down to here, and I'm going to say, in my business parameters, that's great, but I want 25 grand in that account when I end this year. Really, really important, guys. If you want 5, you have 5, all right? If you want 9, you want 11, that's entirely up to you. Now, what you end up with is this. You go through your overheads, you put everything in, every single tea bag, all right? Every bottle of water, everything you've given your client, every bottle of cleaning aids, domestos, everything, right, goes in this box here. Marketing, everything I'm spending now and what am I planning on spending? Service fees, maybe what am I spending on service fee now? And if I'm planning, am I planning on getting a coach? Am I planning on getting an electronic terminal? Am I planning on getting a solicitor? What am I planning on? Okay. Subscriptions. Maybe you are, maybe you got subscriptions with a membership group, or maybe you got subscriptions with a magazine. Everything goes in here. Then you flick yourself over to setup. Okay, you put your opening and yeah, your operating hours in there. But the important one here is my target. Your target profit. That's the really, really important one. Once you've done all that, you end up, I appreciate that some of these won't be your services, by the way, but you end up in this situation here. Let's have a look at what we got. Let's do some massage. You put in here, how long do I take to do a massage? Let's say this particular one is 70 minutes and I charge £45. What this app is now able to tell you is that that costs you £36 to deliver. So well done, guys. All the massages you do from tomorrow are going to make you some profit. What the tier 1 price, I want you to ignore tier 2 and tier 3 because this isn't really about app training today. This is about pricing structures. So all that tells you is if I sell at tier 1, all right, or higher, because this is only giving you minimum pricing, by the way, not maximum pricing, I'm going to make a profit. I'm going to get my £20,000 that's in that box. Everything is going well. However, if we were to look at something else, like reflexology, if I take 60 minutes to do that, I'm charging £25. Maybe some of you are doing that. Maybe some of you are happy with that. Yeah, that sounds good, Carl. Until you realize it cost me £31 or £31 to deliver it. Do you know what that's like, guys? That's like tipping your clients. That's like saying when they're about to go, you say, hey, don't go yet. I've got a tip for you. Yeah, I'm supposed to charge you 25, but I'm going to give you an extra £6. The reality is you've taken that £6 out of your profit, out of the family box. Yeah. You're disrespecting yourself and you're disrespecting your family. You're saying, I'm going to take it out of the profit. And if there's no profit, then I'm going to take it out of my own wages, right, to deliver that for you. There's only 3 things you can do when you're in this situation. 1, reduce the time. Some services can, some services can't. If you were to half the time, then you could half the price. Okay, it makes sense. And the app does that for you, by the way. Okay, if I move that down to 30, then it'll adjust the price for you, okay? It now says that my tier 1 price should be £18.33. So you can play around with that if you wanted to.
So, Carl, would you also, so the treatment would take 60 minutes, for instance, but actually the amount of time a client is with you is quite often 90 minutes. So that 90 minutes needs to go in.
Yep, it's
And
all of the time invested with the client.
And we're talking about profit here. So we're talking, so if you're talking about the time, you're talking about how long you take to get to the client's house, set up, do the treatment, do the aftercare, and then get back home.
Yes.
So you could actually be looking at 120 minutes, if not more. And this is including your hourly rate that you are paying yourself, but not giving you any profit. And unless you are looking at your profit price that you hit.
Tier one. So yeah. So if you on this particular one for 90 minutes, if you did a 90-minute service, including travel, whatever, or setup, then you would, it's costing you £47 to deliver it to them.
Okay.
Okay. So that's your break even. We would need to charge £47 just to go and see them. It's like be visiting your auntie for a cup of tea. Right?
But it does include the money that you would be paying yourself because you've already included that as an expense.
It does.
Okay.
But your profit, your
Yes.
tier one price
It's
over here
profit. Yeah.
is where you also make a profit.
Yeah. Fabulous. Yeah.
So two different things. Well, we have to make sure that we include all of the travel as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So what you could do with that is you could put travel in here, look. And then what you could say is, look, because everyone's reflexology is the same in terms of the service itself, and then travel, you could just put travel in here. Okay, so travel in here, and you could just put various, and we could add them together. You know, because some people will be 30 minutes away and some people will be 40 minutes away and so on, yeah? Okay, so 30 minutes travel, you would have to add, if you want profit, £18.33 to that price. Okay. But just sticking with the service itself, there's only three things you can do with the service when you're in this situation. So this is a kind of a good one in a way. I am charging 25, but it's costing me £31 to deliver. So if I went for break even, that means you would get paid your wage, all your bills would be paid, and I make no profit. Or I can move to the tier one price and I can make a profit as well. There's only three things you can do here, in my opinion. One, reduce the time so that your price comes down in line with it. Two, charge the tier one price, because I don't see why you wouldn't want to get paid and make a profit in any business. Three, and there's no others after this, not provide the service. And we have to be brave about this, by the way, guys. We can't pretend that I'm doing it and I may, because what it is, you sometimes you go to that visit and they'll pay you in cash, and you see the number, they'll give you £25 and you think, I've just made £25. Your brain is connected now as a good thing, but you didn't. Okay, you actually lost six. If you stayed on your sofa and watched, I don't even know what's on TV. Jeremy Kyle, is he still around, right? You sit on your Loose Women. There we are. You sit on your sofa and watch Loose Women for 90 minutes or 60 minutes, you would be £6 better off. That can't be right.
This is one of the reasons why we stopped training in ear candling, because when I broke down the actual cost of the service and how much it actually cost to buy the candles and the cloth and the cleansers and all the rest of it, it just wasn't worth my therapist actually doing that as a treatment.
Well, it's not, and that's what I'm saying. There's three options, right? It either goes out at the correct price, or you reduce the time to balance the correct price, or you don't provide the service. Anyone doing nails, if any of the members you do nails, okay, I can almost guarantee as a coach that you're not making a profit. I can always, it's almost like a blanket thing in the UK, unless you're super, super, super fast, you know who they are, right? Or you're super, super, super spa, 5-star, 10-star hotel expensive. The rest of you in the middle are all broke on nails. Okay. And that's the one key. But it could be any single service within your business. So that's what you do. You work your way through these. You put in how long does the service take, and you are right, including the setup, including the travel, including any development times or anything at all. Any time you're spending with our client, you put it in. It'll give you your break-even price. There's no price in this one, but it'll give you a break-even price. and you either have to go break even if you don't want to profit, or you go to tier one if you want to profit. There is no other price. There's no other pretend makeup. Let's see how I feel price. Okay. I think because of time, I won't go any further into that. But let's do some questions now so everyone gets a good um, cover. But the app is that easy to use. So all I can say is don't use last year's accounts. They're all wrong. Use current bank statements, current what's happening right now. Fill it all out. There's a tutorial as well. Look, even by here. Yeah, you get see. Oh, oh, obviously that's not me, but there's a big smiley face of me talking you through how to use all of this, and you can always message me directly about the app and say, Carl, I don't know why that's happened. You might have to send me your password because I'm not allowed to keep them, and I can talk you through it. But it's that simple, honestly. It is just you sit down, you put in all your overheads, you're really honest with yourself. You put in how much you want to pay yourself because you're a member of staff. You put in how much profitability you want, and I think everyone deserves a profit. It'll throw out a price. If it's correct, brilliant. If it isn't, adjust the price. If it's correct, then brilliant. If it isn't, you go to the correct price or you don't do it. There's nothing else left
Wow.
apart from pretending.
Makes my Excel spreadsheets I put on my business course a little bit insignificant, doesn't it, Mel?
Well, the thing is, there's a lot of maths gone into here
Yeah.
with some much cleverer people than me because it does it allows for holidays. Right. So don't forget, over a year, your business still pays for overheads when you're not there. So you're working on your own. You've got 52 weeks of electric. Yeah. And where's that lady gone? She's gone her own Lanzarote. Yeah. She's still got to pay for, I know she's off this week, but still electric, still water bills. Yeah. So when we are back in the business, we have to pay for them. Ever think of this? When you go for your dinner? Yeah. Dinner to a restaurant on a Saturday night and you have a steak and chips or whatever you have, nice posh one, right? And let's say it comes to, I don't know, the meal is £40. You're not paying for that. You are paying for the electric for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday when nobody came in. Yeah, you're paying for a chef that stood there to cook 3 meals on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday when nobody came in. Yeah, you're paying for the insurance for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday when nobody came in that meal on Saturday. So when you were doing a service, you were that client has to pay for when you went on holiday or when you do what I mean? So the price isn't just, oh, it's this bit of wax and it's my half an hour. It's all these other things which we do forget when we do the calculations on spread, which is why I was maybe a bit patronizing to the ones who are great at maths. Not many of us can do this simply mathematically because there's just too many things to remember.
Yeah. It's a completely different way of looking at it, and why I feel it's so important and why I put my students through so much heartache is because otherwise you do actually end up having an expensive hobby because you don't know these things and you don't know
Oh,
what you don't know, do you? As a
cancel appointments. You're good when
oh
you're on
yeah, good
cancel
one.
appointments. Okay, so on cancelled appointments, right? So now there's two ways to look at this. The easiest way, simplest way is to look at it like this. We go back, so I'll quickly share this with you. If you want to automate it, all right, you do it like this. Okay, we're back up here. Go into your business parameters, go down to your participation, which basically means how much of your working week are you busy?
Yeah.
All right, so if you had 100%, brilliant, well done on you. I don't know anyone. Okay, 100% because as someone just said, someone's not going to turn up. All right. But if you were to put in 80% or 90%, which you can change here, that would say that I'm only busy 90% of my time, which would then allow for a couple of cancellations, or it would allow for the quiet weeks. Yeah.
Mm.
Because I don't know, it may be in your business, you go on holiday or an area goes on holiday. I mean, do you know they used to have factories fortnight and mining fortnight? Maybe you have something that's specific to your area. So if you want to automatically allow for cancellations, then you just adjust for the participation. Or if you know that there's other reasons in your business that I'm only busy 90% of my time. So that basically means we have to collect all of the money for the year in a little bit less time. And then the app adjusts all the prices for you.
So in there as well, there's room for you to put how many weeks you are actually working. So, you know, somebody might say, well, I only want to work school term time, so I'm only going to work 36 weeks of the year, and the rest are all going to be holidays. That can all be factored in as well, can't it?
They get factored in either
Yeah.
through that participation rate,
Yep.
um, or it gets factored in through their the opening hours by here as well.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
I mean, the app wouldn't work if you only worked 1 week a year. It's going to give you, well, it would still work because it's the overhead you're putting in. If you put the overheads in for a year and you're only working 1 week, can you imagine how high the price would be? Okay. So if you're only going to work 1 week a year, then you're obviously only going to put your overheads in for 1 week a year.
Debbie's got a great question. How do
Yeah.
you account for competitions and donations of treatments to charities? Would you put that in as an expense? You'd put that in as a planned, I'm going to give £200 worth of stuff away. So it's an
Yep.
expense.
It's an expense.
Mm.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, on retail as well, we have to be, there's something on retail as well we have to be careful about in terms of putting it into the app. We often get, so if I show you on here, a retail product is not necessarily the same thing if you're using it or if you're selling it. Sometimes we get a big bunch of retailing and we think it's way too expensive, so we stop retailing because we think of it as a bill. The retail products used on a client are part of the cost of service.
I can ask everybody here a question. Anybody listening to the replay back, how many of you retail products, so actually make money for doing nothing? Let's put a yes or something in the comments. I would imagine that the majority are going to say no, they
Okay,
don't. So that's maybe another
it
another
is.
for
uh,
another time as to the power of
I
retailing.
think we're gonna, yeah, look, I'd love an invite back to talk about retail.
Okay.
I have a retail course because before my 4 salons, by the way, guys, I used to be a retailer. I used to be a store manager for Sainsbury's and B&Q and other companies, Asda and all those kinds of companies, right? That was my career one. So I'm retailing totally mad. Um, if you're not retailing, I got to kind of make sure we get this in for the rerun people as well. If you're not retailing, you're insane for 2 reasons. Okay. Louise wouldn't say it like that, I know. For 2 reasons. One, the profitability is immense compared to doing a service. Absolutely immense. Retail profitability, we can expect between 50 and 200%. Your average service profit is 10%. Right, by the time you've driven around everywhere and paid for everything and paid for coaches and cups of tea, 10%. So you could spend 4 hours, take £200 and go home with £20 in profit if you're lucky. When I talk about profit, by the way, I talk about profit as money you can take down the pub and buy a beer. Okay, if I can't buy a beer or a motorbike, it's not profit to me. Right? Whereas we could sell a £40 product and get £20, and it takes me 10 seconds with no staff, and I
Yeah.
got £20.
Definitely another lunchtime earning we can look, because I think
Ah,
a lot of our reflexologists and complementary therapists first of all say, well, I wouldn't know what to retail, I don't want to sell to people, and to actually identify something that's going to support the client and that the client actually wants and is probably buying from somewhere else is so valuable. So we'll do that. Yeah.
the most important thing with retail, and to take away people's emotions, because I've heard all of the reasons why we don't retail. I hear them every day. It's one of the biggest things I do is our responsibility is to give the clients what they need. And you should be emotionally um, comfortable with that. Why would you not want to give your clients what they need? I think you could all settle with being happy with that.
That's amazing.
Look, let's come back on retail. I think
Okay.
we could do so much good for you guys if we can convince you that retailing is amazing for your profitability, but it's amazing for the client.
I'm sure that when everybody listens to this back, or when our delegates on here today start to think about how it affects their business, they'll have more questions. So, Carl, is it fine if I pass people your way? And in the link, I'll put the link to get the app if anybody would like the app, and also your website and various bits and pieces.
Yep, you can find me. Well, look, my company's called Salon Help. You'll be able to find me
Yeah.
anyway. You're welcome to feed them. your questions to Louise and she can feed them over. You can put them on info@salon-help.co.uk. Email me morning, noon, and night. My telephone number is 07931518642. Okay. You
I'll
just
put it all in the
text
chat.
me. Don't, and I'm not one of these people that you can't contact 2 o'clock in the morning. The only time I won't answer you is if I'm sleeping, working, or drunk.
That is absolutely true.
Okay, that's totally true, right? So, look, there's plenty of support out there. You've got Louise's great support. I'm happy to support you in anything you're doing as well. But the pricing app, if you're going to do your price, is super easy to use. Okay, guys, any more questions? Are we all done?
Yay.
Yep, we're good. Lovely. Yeah, you're a lovely bunch. Thanks for the invite. And I hope well, I'll find out if I've been good or not, if I get invited again.